Hey, Alia here. So I just got to talk to Rick Rodriguez. He has been doing the carnivore diet basically almost completely since 1983. So he's got a lot of really interesting things to say. Let's see what he says.
So, to begin, I'm really curious, what does charge Mopar mean?
That refers to my cars. I'm a big fan of, old Dodge, Chrysler. I have several 1969 and 1970 Chargers. When I set up this YouTube channel in
Okay.
2007, it was going to be about the cars, restoring the cars, driving, and all those things.
Oh,
But,
nice.
it didn't turn out that way.
Yeah. Okay. It turned out into like other things. I still have to watch your video about how to cook an iguana.
Well, that's one of them. I'm going to make another one. I have a whole iguana that's in the freezer, and I'm getting ready to. I'm going to try to do this one as a deep fried iguana,
Oh,
which tastes
wow.
better.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I wonder if you weren't like doing carnivore for 40 years, if you would have ever eaten an iguana.
Well, it's like when you start eating meat, and that's pretty much all you eat, you start to
Yeah.
look at animals in a different way. And when the iguana problem got really bad around here,
Yeah.
it turned into something. I go, well, people are killing these iguanas and throwing them away. I wonder if they're edible. And I just, out of curiosity, I cut one up and boiled it up, and it tasted good. And I go, wow, this is some good meat, and people are just wasting it. But we have a lot of
Yeah.
island people here now, so they
Oh,
know that
okay.
it's good meat, but still. Yeah, it was new to me.
That's so interesting. So maybe we should start at the beginning. How did you decide to just start eating meat in 1983? Like what inspired you?
Well, compared to all the other carnivores out there, I think I'm the oddball because I didn't do it as a way of getting healthy. I
Right.
actually did it as a way of trying to have a heart attack because I haven't been able to set up the video yet. I'm trying to work on it. But I was
Okay.
one of the shortest and skinniest kids when I was growing up. Elementary school,
Oh,
junior
wow.
high was the worst.
Sure.
And it was getting ready for high school because high school was going to start after that summer. And I was dreading the thought of having to go to high school because I'd been through that in elementary school and junior high. And, when you're the new class, freshman class, or whatever they call that, plus you're one of the skinniest and the shortest people, it's just not going to be a pleasant experience.
Right.
Then to make matters worse, I broke my arm trying to help my dad put up the carport. So not only
Oh,
was I
wow.
little, but I was like a duckling with a broken wing.
Yeah.
I was thinking, oh, they're going to throw me to the dogs. So I thought, you know what? Maybe if I eat nothing but meat, maybe I'll get sick and then I won't have to go to school because I was already delayed a couple of weeks because of the broken arm. But I
Sure.
thought, you know what? If I could get sick, maybe I could stay home longer. But it didn't work
Sure.
out that way at all.
Oh no. Yeah. So this was you were like 15 at the time?
I was 15.
Oh wow, yeah,
I
that's
turned
rough.
15 that June, and I broke my arm. I think it was in July. I don't remember exactly, but I know by August I was pretty much stuck in the house. And the other problem was my mother, she was going to college to
Okay.
get courses for her teaching certificate, and my dad was working. So there wasn't really anybody here except for me. And being pretty much stuck at the house, I had to kind of fend for myself. And, when you're a teenager, you're not exactly a cook.
Sure.
So I had to be resourceful.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, it just, to me, it seemed like the best thing that I could eat is what I like the most, and that's meat.
Oh,
Because a
nice.
lot of times when we go out to eat, we usually go to buffet, and my parents would tell me, well, you got to have vegetables, you got to have a salad. Don't eat the meat until you had the salad. And, I'd eat some of the vegetables. Usually I just take a bunch of them and then hide them somewhere. They
Nice.
used to have these fake plants in the Sweden House smorgasbord, and I'd put it up in the top where you couldn't see it. And then a lot of times my parents eventually figured it out, but I hated vegetables.
It's
I'd
hilarious.
eat a few bits of
Sure.
salad, and I go, now I can have the roast beef or the
Sure.
fried chicken or
Right.
the shrimp or any of the good stuff that they had, not those
Right.
horrible vegetables. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I
when it came
understand.
to dessert, I didn't even like cake or cookies or anything. The only dessert I actually liked was Jello, and that was it. So I had weird tastes.
I think you had probably good taste. Who wouldn't want to eat the roast beef? You know?
And the thing is that they always had a guy there with this big white hat, and he'd take the knife and cut it. And the thing is, when they brought it out, it was steaming and it smelled so good. And I was a
Oh
kid, and
yeah.
I'd look and I'd see them bringing out the roast beef. I go, oh boy, I'd run over there, and I was like almost the height of the buffet, and I'm holding up the plate, and I guess they thought it was cute, give the kids some meat.
Sure.
And I could eat a
Sure.
lot of meat even back then.
Oh wow. Oh wow. So basically you were stuck at home. What would you make during your like recovery time from this accident or your arm thing?
What I made normally was hamburgers.
Oh nice.
And I started out just making a standard hamburger with bread and with the pickles and all that. But then my parents weren't going to the store, so I thought, what do I need the bread for? I'll just have extra patties. Because a
Sure.
lot of times when my mother would give me a lunch, she would give me one of those disgusting peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, which I would usually feed to the ducks outside the school.
Nice.
But what she started doing when she found out I was throwing the food away, she gave me just a peanut butter sandwich. And then what I did, I said, you know what? Maybe I'll just eat the peanut butter, which I don't really mind. I mean, it was okay.
Sure.
But that's another story because we got into a battle with the peanut butter. Whenever they had Jif or Skippy, I got
Sure.
sick. I hated that
Oh
stuff.
yeah. It's
But
just
they
good
had a
sugar.
Publix supermarket with a
Uh-huh.
ground peanut butter where they'd actually grind it in the store and they put it in
Okay.
these little plastic tubs. That one I actually liked.
Okay.
So I would scrape off the peanut butter and I'd stick the bread in my pocket. And after school, I'd give it to the ducks because if I left it in my pocket and my mother found out about it, I'd be in trouble. So whatever
Sure.
I didn't like to eat, I'd stick it in my pocket. I'd hold it, or we had a lunchbox back then, a metal one. I'd stick it in there, and then nobody would know. And then after school, before my parents would come, I'd go out the side. There were ducks always in the parking lot, and I'd feed it to the ducks. Then by the time I got back, the lunchbox was empty and everything was fine,
Oh, that's great.
except when the ducks weren't there, and then I had to try to get rid of it. And it was a pain. But
Sure.
that summer, what I did, I thought, I had eaten these sandwiches without the bread. Let me just get rid of the bread because we
Right.
didn't have any. And I said, I'll just
Sure.
eat extra meat. So I came up with my own version of a hamburger, which is 3 patties with no ketchup. Just
Oh wow.
I put an onion in there because I always
Okay.
like the flavor of that, and just make like a sandwich. Of course,
Nice.
my mother thought I lost my mind. Why, you don't eat that? I said, oh, I don't want the bread. I just want the
Sure.
meat.
Nice.
So, and
And
then the other thing I was making, we had fish.
yeah.
So a lot of
Okay.
times I would steam the fish, or eventually I learned how to fry. And then when I learned how to fry, I was frying chicken and fish. But again, you know, deep frying wasn't really possible because our deep
Sure.
fryer wasn't accessible. But what I
Okay.
did, I figured out I could use fat, which, basically lard. And I
Sure.
actually found that out from watching an old TV show. I don't remember, because I was during the day, they had like a lot of reruns. I know they had the Three Stooges, which I used to laugh at, but there was this show, I think it was called Doris Day Show. And I remember one time they were cooking and they had put lard in there and they were cooking something in the lard. I thought, oh, that's pretty good. And we did have some lard, which I don't even know where we got it from, but when I tried it out, it worked. I think it's because my mom used to bake, and that's probably
Okay.
where it came from. But it was covered in dust. It was a metal container with a bunch of dust on it, and it said lard. So I used that, and it worked really well. So, I taught myself how to cook
That's
the way that
awesome.
I like it.
Yeah.
And then eventually my parents figured out, well, he can cook for himself. What do you like to eat? Well, I like to eat meat. So they would go to the Grand Union or the Winn-Dixie and try to get some meat. And I started eating steaks, and, I don't know, just the meat just came natural and I enjoyed it.
Oh, that's awesome. It's so nice. So your parents were supportive then.
Well, um, yeah, I guess technically they were. But the
Okay.
problem was that it came after many, many years of battling, because my dad especially was very much into health foods. He
Okay.
was into things like wheat germ and whole grains, and they didn't like to eat anything that was white flour or white bread, but they did like
Okay.
the whole wheat flour. They had this
Sure.
whole wheat bread, which is basically just bread. They put some, I don't know, some brown stuff on it to make it look dark. I hated it
Wow.
because when I would eat it, it'd make me feel sick. So I
Oh,
didn't like
wow.
that. And
Great.
then they would use molasses or brown sugar as a sweetener. They used to give
Okay.
me this disgusting oatmeal in the morning, and they put brown sugar on it. But
Oh,
you
wow.
know, I always got into a battle because what they did when I was younger, they had taken away the butter and they replaced it with margarine. And then the milk that I used to drink, they replaced it with skim milk, which to me tasted
Oh
like
man.
water, and I
Sure.
hated it. And
Sure.
then I used to like to eat sour cream, but they came this disgusting, I think it was called Axelrod sour cream, and it was low fat. It was horrible. I mean, it tasted like duck poop. I don't know. It was nasty. And I thought, I don't want to eat this either. So we got into battles. But I
Okay.
think what eventually happened is my parents got fed up with me, and they said, you know what, let him eat whatever he wants. He wants to die of a
Okay.
heart attack, let him die of a heart attack.
Okay, that's why you said you were trying to get a heart attack.
That's right. Everyone told me that this was diet was going to kill me. It was a deadly diet. So I thought, hey, that's a good way to go. And a
Yeah,
lot of the kids that I knew, they were doing stupid things like drinking or smoking, which I
yeah,
don't like. I can't stand the
sure.
smell of cigarettes, and I don't like alcohol. But
Okay,
but to me, hey, you could be a goody two shoes and not get drunk and not get
right.
drugged, but you could still be on the edge because you could eat a bunch of meat and fat, and you're going to either get a heart attack or colon cancer. And I was hoping for the heart attack because I
Oh, you
watched a
were?
lot of Sanford and Son reruns, and he's always talking about the big one. That seemed kind of fun to me.
Okay, that's hilarious. It probably wouldn't be, but I understand. So,
I
so it's so interesting that you like intuitively knew as like a younger person or a young adult that this is like the way to go.
Well, I
And
was always called a picky eater. That's the problem.
oh,
I was,
okay.
oh, Ricky doesn't want to eat anything. He just wants to eat meat. He doesn't like vegetables. He doesn't like fruit. He doesn't like anything. I heard this constantly. And it just, I don't know. I got frustrated by it, but it just seemed to me, why would I want to eat something that tastes bad? And then
Sure.
I came to the conclusion that only food that tastes bad is good for you. And that's why I said, you know what? I'd rather die of a heart attack than eat
Mm,
tofu, this
right.
disgusting crap that my dad
Sure.
gave me because they said the cheese, I love cheddar cheese.
Yeah.
But there is one cheese that I absolutely hate, and that's American cheese. That to me is totally disgusting. It's
It's like,
nasty. It smells
yeah.
funny. It's ugly color. But I like there used to be a store in the mall, I think it was called Wisconsin Cheese Lovers. And every time we go by there, they give you samples. And I
Oh, nice.
remember they had mozzarella and Gouda, and they had trying to think of the other one. There was like several different cheeses, and I'd love to go and get the samples because it tasted good.
Sure.
But for some reason, my parents got this really odd idea that cheese was bad for you. So they wanted me to eat tofu. Oh, the
Oh
tofu was
no.
bad. My dad used to fry it. He would put soy sauce in a pan, put tofu in there, put some vegetable oil, and stir it up. It smelled like paint. It tasted disgusting. And I said, Dad, how can you eat this? And then he'd eat it along with pita bread, another thing that I hated.
Oh,
I
sure.
don't like any kind of bread, believe it or
Okay.
not.
I believe it. I believe it.
There
So,
was a
so,
bakery not that far away, and I always hated bakeries.
oh wow. I wish I would have like at when you started would have been as intuitive as you were.
I don't know. At the time, I thought I was a bad person, or, I don't know. I thought everything was against me.
Oh wow. Oh wow. It's so interesting how it's just very interesting, the whole subject of food and everyone's ideologies about it. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, okay, so now when was like the last time you had to go to a doctor?
1996.
Oh
I
wow.
had I had a company, and we switched the health plan. So in order to qualify for the new health plan, I had to go and get some tests.
Okay.
And I remember when I got the tests, they told me that my cholesterol was high and that I was at a greater risk for heart disease. But the doctor I went to was fat, and he was ugly.
Okay.
So he's telling me all these things that can happen, cancer and this and that, and you're eating too much. And he asked me, how much do I eat? I said, I don't know, I eat 2 to 4 pounds of meat a day, the fattiest meat I can get. Oh, that's terrible. And then I think I told him, I don't remember the exact words, but the whole idea was this. I said, well, if I'm in such trouble, why are you the one that's fat and I'm thin? That was like, he's going on about some stupid medical garbage. I said, you know what? I
Sure.
don't want to deal with this. I told him, I said, look, I eat this way. If I get a heart attack and die, that's too bad. Oh, you shouldn't
Okay.
say that. Your loved ones are this. And I said, look, I'm not married. I have my parents. I'm going to outlive them. What difference does it make? When I drop dead, I drop dead. I feel good. I'm happy. Who
Yeah.
cares? And that really, that turned me off like crazy. After that, I
Sure.
thought, I'm not going to bother going to the doctor.
Right.
And I
Right.
never went back to one since then.
Oh, that's awesome. And have you been sick since then?
Oh, I've had the flu.
Oh, okay.
The worst flu I ever get is when I tried to went vegetarian. That's when I got a really bad flu.
Oh,
Plus, I had
wow.
chronic diarrhea. I had
Mm.
diarrhea pretty much all day for weeks.
Oh,
It was
wow.
really bad.
When you so when were you a vegetarian?
1993.
Oh, wow. And
Well,
what inspired that?
well, I'll tell you what happened. We
Okay.
had Hurricane Andrew in 1992. It was
Okay.
in August. And
Okay.
then what happened before that, I had actually built a generator that runs on wood. Well, I started to, but I didn't finish it. Our power got knocked off, and I was staying with my parents, and my dad, he was eager to do something. So I had enough fuel to run the generator for like a week or so. So we finished what I was building. We built a gasifier out of some parts that I had. And plus, after the hurricane, there was junk everywhere. So we rigged that up. And since we had the generator, we had a rich plan freezer and we had 2 refrigerators. So we had a lot of food. And a lot of our friends, their power was off. So after a couple days, their food was going bad. So I told them, I said, bring it over here. We can feed the ducks with the food that's going bad. But they had all this meat, all this delicious, steaks and
Oh,
seafood.
wow.
I mean, there was so much meat. I was like, wow, I'm in heaven. This is great. So I
Sure.
crammed the freezer full. I threw out a lot of the vegetable, the stuff that we had frozen, the vegetables. We cooked a lot of it as a stew. It all went to the ducks, and I loaded up with meat. And my parents, they were eating some of the vegetables. The ones that were old that went right out to the ducks. But what I did, I thought, okay, let me load up on meat. And I just started eating meat because there wasn't much to do after the storm. Everything, the roads
Sure.
were blocked and it was a mess. And I started working maybe a couple weeks after that, but I just started eating meat. And from August of 92 all the way to the end of the year, I was just eating meat and meat and meat and meat because people kept giving me meat. I had tons of
Oh,
it and
wow.
I wouldn't eat anything else.
Okay.
Well, what happened, my parents, of course, we've been living together, they were extremely concerned
Sure.
that I'm eating way too much meat. And then there was a couple of days when I was feeling kind of tired and lightheaded. So they convinced me that I may have heart trouble or something like that. And I
Okay.
think I'm trying to remember the next time I went to the doctor, I did get checked, but there was really nothing wrong.
Yeah.
But I thought, it scared me. And then the other thing is they said, well, if you eat only meat, you're going to have all kinds of health problems. And I kept getting this from all the people I knew telling me how I was killing myself. So I said, you know what? I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go vegetarian.
Oh, wow.
And that's what I did. So at the
Okay.
beginning of 93, right on New Year's, I went vegetarian.
Okay.
And no more beef. I was still eating some fish and I was still
Okay.
eating some chicken, but then little by little I tapered off. And by February, no meat. I was eating eggs, and I was
Yeah.
okay. But then I started having some problems around April. And then
Okay.
my vegetarian friend said, look, you just have to get rid of all the meat and it's going to take a while to adapt. So I said, okay, no more eggs, no meat whatsoever. So I guess technically I went vegan.
Okay.
And it didn't get any better. Then my
Oh,
dad, who
wow.
used to do a
Yeah.
lot of juicing, he says, oh, you got to have fruit juices to get the nutrients. So I started the fruit juices. Then it got worse. I just
So
had
what was
constant
happening?
gas,
Oh, constant gas. Okay.
diarrhea. Oh, it was terrible. And I used to get like when I lay down, I'd get this thing in my throat that was irritated. I mean, it got worse and worse. Then I
Oh,
got a rash. I used to get a rash every time that I'd get hot. I get a rash on the side and I got a rash on my head. It was just getting worse and worse.
that's crazy. And you were having constant diarrhea during this time also?
Yeah, around June, I guess somewhere around June, I just had nothing but diarrhea.
Oh my
And
God.
it was really bad because if you were out working and you had to go, you got to
Yeah.
find a place to go. And a lot of times I
Right.
just had to run for a bush somewhere. So I
Oh
always had to
man.
keep toilet paper in my car as well as a water bottle and some soap. I mean, it was bad.
That's a
I just,
disaster.
and they kept telling me, oh, it'll get better. Don't worry. You'll adapt to it. Oh yeah, I
Sure.
adapted all right. That July, I got the flu and I got
Oh
so
man.
sick. I couldn't even eat. I was throwing up. I mean, it was terrible.
That
I
sounds
don't think I've
terrible.
ever been that sick in my life or since.
Oh wow, that's crazy. So when did you decide, no, that's it, I'm done being a vegan and vegetarian, I'm going back to meat eating? Like,
Well, after I got sick, it was probably a week before I could even get up and do anything.
That was
And
terrible.
every time I get up, everything was like rotating around the room. I mean, it was terrible. I was dizzy. I couldn't stand up. And both of my parents had gotten sick too. So it was a really bad germ. But
Sure.
I got sick last, but I got better kind of first.
Okay.
And then I remember the first thing I did when I went outside, I said, I got to go outside. I can't stay in the house anymore.
Yeah.
And I found a nest of duck eggs to the right-hand side of the door. And
Yeah.
I looked at that because there was nothing really good in the refrigerator. I thought, you know what? That's what I'm going to have for breakfast.
Nice.
So
Nice.
I got 4 duck eggs. I think, no, maybe it was 3. I don't remember exactly how many. All I
Yeah.
know is I picked up the duck eggs. I went in the kitchen. I got some butter and I cooked up the duck eggs. And within 2 hours, I was feeling much better.
Oh, wow.
And I
I'm
went
sure.
outside and I was sitting there with the ducks and I go, I'm feeling better. And then later on that day, I felt good enough to drive to the store. The first thing I did, I drove to the Winn-Dixie and I looked and they had some marked down meat for 99 cents a pound. And I bought all I could. And I said,
Okay.
that's it.
Great.
I'm going to go back to meat.
Yeah. And then, so that's awesome. And then how long was it before your body like felt normal again after the whole ordeal?
I'll tell you, it was a while because I felt better, but I had no energy. I would do
Okay.
a little bit of work and then I was burned out. And then I
Okay.
started getting these headaches again. And, you know, it wasn't great, but the thing was, I didn't feel as bad. The diarrhea
Okay.
went away. That
Okay.
went away in about a day. I
Okay.
started eating. I didn't go to the bathroom at all for a day because I'd thrown up so much and I hadn't eaten anything and I
Okay.
had diarrhea. And after about a day, the diarrhea went away. And the first time that I went, it was small, but it was solid. And I go, oh, finally, finally.
Yeah.
And the headaches, they were, every now and then I get one, but they seem to taper over time. And then it probably took another 3 or 4 months before I was
Oh,
back to
wow.
normal and strong again.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. It's crazy because you're a botanist, right? Or a gardener or what?
I'm a gardener.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
my main career is my degrees in electronics and electrical
Oh, okay.
engineering, but I've been a gardener since I was a kid. In
Okay.
fact, that was one of the first things I did when I was younger. I used to love to grow plants. I
Nice.
always had my banana plants and my vegetables and fruit trees and all that. So, and I still do to this day. I'm a
Oh,
big
that's
time
awesome.
gardener.
That's awesome. So, but then you understand like the poisons and the toxins that exist in
I
various
did.
plants.
And it's interesting because when I was in elementary school in 6th grade, they had like a camp out there. We went to the Everglades.
Okay.
It was called Need Camp Out. I found a paper for it when I was going through the house, but they took us out there to see what it was like to be in the Everglades. And I remember I looked around and I saw like the poisonwood tree and the poison ivy and all
Yeah.
the toxic plants that were out there. And we had one kid that ate some berries and they
Oh,
had to take him to the
no.
hospital. And I tried to say, I said, you can't just eat stuff out here. Most of this stuff is poisonous.
Right.
You have to know what you're eating if you're going to eat a plant or a plant part.
Yeah,
Because even some
absolutely.
fruits may be good to eat, but the plant itself is toxic. It's like a tomato plant. You can
Sure.
eat a tomato, but don't dare touch the leaves, eat the stems or anything like that, or you'll get really sick.
That's so interesting. Wow. Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know enough about plants.
Well,
Just,
that's the thing, if
yeah,
they understood that a plant basically is a sitting duck,
right,
it's got to fight off animals and insects, otherwise it's going to
right.
die.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
remember as a kid, we used to have milkweed, which is like it's like a wild plant that would pop up and it would grow to a point,
Okay.
it would flower. And then these butterflies would lay eggs on it and the caterpillars would eat it. And then they'd strip all the leaves off of it. Then the plant would come back later and it would do that again 2 or
Oh,
3
wow.
times. And then after that,
Okay.
it was dead because they couldn't keep up with the bugs that were eating it.
Right.
And I noticed that every plant that got eaten by bugs died. So then I
Yeah.
thought, well, how do the other plants survive? And then you
Right.
start to realize, well, not every bug can eat every plant. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the thing. And also, the birds and other predators eat the bugs. So the plants kind of work with the predators to survive.
Right.
Otherwise, they don't have a chance.
Yeah, it makes sense. Totally makes sense. So I'm curious about your duck population. How many ducks do you have?
I got about 30 ducks right now. I try to keep the population under 35. When I
Okay.
get more than 35, then it's time to, as they say, thin the herd.
in the herd and they become
But I've been
breakfast?
very successful by getting all the eggs. I eat
Okay.
most of their eggs, so the
Oh, okay.
population is very stable. At one time, there was hundreds of ducks around here,
Oh,
and they were
wow.
taking over the neighborhood, and people were trying to get rid of them. And that's one of the reasons why I started eating duck, because ever since I was a kid, I used to love to feed the ducks. I
Sure.
love ducks, especially the ducklings, because they're so cute, and they come up to you, they'll eat out of your hand. They're really nice, but a lot of people don't like them because they say they're ugly and they poop everywhere. There's duck poop all over the place.
Oh, wow. But that's got to be good for the ground to grow
Well,
your
that's the
plants.
thing. My banana plants are they're about almost 30 feet tall in some places,
Oh,
which is the
wow.
biggest in the neighborhood. And a lot of it, I do compost, but I think a lot of it is from the duck waste. Because
Okay.
if you've ever seen a Muscovy duck, it's like a pooping machine. They poop everywhere.
I don't know the difference between ducks, but I'll Google it afterwards.
You can look it up. The
Yeah,
Muscovy duck is a
Muscovy.
bigger duck and it has red stuff around its head. It looks a little strange. It looks like a dinosaur, like a prehistoric
Oh,
duck.
that's very
But
funny.
but they're actually very nice birds. They're pretty
Okay.
harmless.
Oh, that's nice. So you keep the population down and then so do they like live around your house because they understand that you will feed them? Or are
Yeah.
they just all over the neighborhood?
Whenever I open the door, especially in the morning, they come walking up to the door looking for
Oh,
food. When I'm
okay.
outside, a lot of times, if I'm gardening, see, a lot of times I'll dig holes. It'll bring up bugs. They'll come running in and grab earthworms. Or if I find a
Sure.
caterpillar, I throw it to them.
Oh,
And
nice.
they eat cockroaches. We have
Oh, that's
roaches
great.
that fly down here outside.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those. They're
Big.
like this big, right?
Yep.
It's so
And my
scary.
yard has hardly any because every time one runs across the yard, a duck eats it.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So you got like a whole little ecosystem happening in your backyard.
That's right. They're in the front, they're back, they on the roof, they're everywhere. The
Oh,
ducks,
wow.
and there's a few other duck houses. There's a lady down the street that feeds the ducks, but her duck population is completely out of control. There's so
Okay.
many ducks there. There's tons of duck poop. A lot of the ducks have deformities because they
Oh,
feed them
wow.
mostly bread and corn and other foods
Mhm.
like that. I give them a variety of foods. I give them some
Okay.
junk food, but I also give them meat scraps, and they
Oh,
have a lot
nice.
of bugs to eat. So they
Sure.
do fine. But
Oh, that's
if
nice.
you go to like the hospital or by the canal where people feed them bread and corn, they don't do so well. They
Sure.
usually look pretty unhealthy.
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes sense. Doesn't seem like a proper human food or duck food.
That's it. And I tell people if you want to eat duck food, then you too can waddle around and poop every 15 minutes.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
that's the one thing that a lot of the vegetarian friends I've had tell me, oh, you got to poop at least every time that you eat.
Oh
Well,
man,
really? That doesn't sound right.
it doesn't, it's, yeah, no, I understand now that that's very strange. Okay, I actually had another question. So what is like the stupidest thing somebody has said to you because you eat meat? Other than if it's different than the heart attack thing and that you're gonna kill yourself.
Well, that's one of them. But the other thing they often say is, "Oh, you're cruel to animals. You're a murderer." That's what they tell me. I said,
Oh
"Yeah, but
wow,
oh yeah, you're a murderer. Yeah, I've killed iguanas and ducks. Of course I have. But the
sure.
ones that are nice to me, they're still around. You could see them coming around. And if I'm such a bad person, how come the ducks always come up to me? As soon as I walk
Yeah.
outside, they come up to me with their mouth open and wagging their little tails because they love to wag that tail.
Oh, that's really funny. They're like your dog. They're
Pretty
like
much.
our dog.
Yeah, if you look up Muscovy duck, you'll see how they act. They
Oh
bob their
wow.
head up and down. They make funny noises. They wag their tails, but they're good ducks. But a lot of people tell me, "Oh, it's carnivore diet. You're just killing all the animals, and you're a terrible person, and oh, you're animal abuser. You're no, 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 no." And I try to explain to them that's not the way it works.
Yes.
When you're a
Yeah.
carnivore, you're the one that wants the animals around, so you have
Right.
something to eat.
Yeah, exactly. So then good. I'm glad you said that because I was curious what your viewpoint was of like I think animals were put here on this planet to feed other animals and to feed us. Like that's however we got here, whatever your philosophy is, that's why I think they're here. So I guess you kind of answered that, but do you have anything else you want to say about that?
Well, if you think about it, like I was saying about the ducks, if you get too many ducks in one place, do you know what happens next?
No, what?
Well, let's say that I had 200 ducks running around the yard.
Yeah.
There's a disease out there. It's called duck enteritis. When you get
Oh
too many
wow.
ducks in one location, they get hit by that disease and they start dropping dead all over the place.
Mm,
I've had, I've seen it. where ducks just start dying, not in my yard, but in other yards. I have a friend that had a bunch of ducks and they got sick and they were just dropping dead all over the place
Right.
because it's like anything else. You get too many of one species in one spot. It's the same thing with gardening. You know, it's like the banana plants that are all genetically the same. They get a fungus and it wipes them all out. So you want to keep the population dynamic. You want to
Okay.
keep just the right amount of animals so that you don't have a plague or some pandemic that takes them all out.
Right.
So
That
what's
makes sense.
better? An animal gets killed for food, or it dies slowly of a disease, or it gets ripped apart by a predator.
Right.
And one
Yeah,
way or the other,
exactly.
that's what's going to happen.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. You should totally do a YouTube video about your ducks. Like
I'm
wagging their
thinking about it.
tails. I would love to watch that.
I love I have a few duck videos on my channel,
Yeah.
you know, just to
Okay.
show.
I saw some of your videos. I'll search for the ducks, but I would love to see a duck wagging its tail. That's hilarious.
Oh yeah, they're so funny. You know, there are other people that made videos of Muscovy ducks wagging their tail, but they are very cute.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And they
Well,
open
I
their
will
mouth.
find
I
them.
mean, they're funny. And they're
It's
kind of
funny.
wild here. So a lot of times I'll go somewhere and I'll see some ducks. And sometimes I'm working, I'll run over there and start talking to the ducks. I said, "Oh, you're always with those ducks." I said, "I like the ducks. If I see them in the middle of the road, I'll stop my car and I'll get out and I'll try to shoo them off the road." You know, I'm always trying to help the ducks. When there's an
Right.
injured or sick duck, people bring it to me.
Oh
And about
wow.
50% of the time I can rehabilitate them.
Oh,
So
that's really nice.
that's another good thing.
That is another good thing. This, I love this because like you're caring for all of these animals, but then in return, they're your food eventually at some point. So
That's true.
yeah, it's not like it's totally against what some people were telling you. It's like the
Well,
exact opposite.
that's totally different than some of the vegan friends I've had. But the thing
Yeah,
is, I have one vegan friend.
yeah.
She's terrified of lizards.
Oh, okay.
So every time she has an iguana problem, she tells me, "Can you take care of the iguana for me?" And yeah, yeah. So I'll catch the iguana alive and I'll put it
Yeah.
in my truck and I'll bring it home. And then later on, I'll prepare it for dinner. But
Nice.
I've
I mean,
removed a lot of iguanas from there.
that's nice. I mean, I mean the other option is people don't want the iguanas, they're just gonna kill them. And then what?
Well,
They
that's it. That's
yeah,
what I try to explain.
yeah.
You know, that's like people that are animal rights and then they get a rat infestation. They call the exterminator. Like,
Why
well,
not
you
call some
know,
cats?
well, that's it. But they don't want to have the cats over there eating the rodents. I said, look, if you got a couple of cats, you wouldn't have a problem. And
Yeah,
I
exactly.
had cats. I mean, I don't have one now, but I've always had several cats. But you know, and I fed them meat. I've had cats live 21 years and they never went to the vet. They were all healthy.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. There you go. They're probably eating their proper diet. Rats. Rats and
Well,
mice.
yeah, that and meat. You know,
Yeah,
a lot of
meat.
times I'd get the expired meat from the store. They'd either give it to me or it was very cheap and I'd cook it up for them. Sometimes I gave them raw meat if the meat was good.
Yeah.
And my cat, I mean, it was more expensive to buy the canned cat food than to just give them the meat. And that
Okay.
garbage that they sell, that dry cat food, that
Oh
stuff
yeah.
is terrible.
It's
You know, I
terrible.
tried to chew on it myself and it was disgusting. I thought, you know, "Oh, you can't eat that. That's pet food." I said, "Why would I feed my pets something I wouldn't eat? That's just wrong.
Yeah,
I'll give that to
exactly.
the ducks. I'm not giving it to my cats."
Sure, makes sense. Absolutely. It's like the right viewpoint. So, I had another thing I wanted to ask you, but I'll ask this in the meantime. Oh, I wanted to know because you've been doing this for so long, you're obviously in fantastic health. Have you helped anybody like change how they were eating so that they became healthier?
I have, but only a few people.
Oh, okay.
Um, a friend of mine that was a bodybuilder, he, let's see, he was a bodybuilder till he was about 26. And then when he got out of bodybuilding, he started gaining a lot of weight. And then he tried playing with calories and all that, and it didn't work. So with my friend, he says, "I don't understand it." He sees how much I eat. I said, "You sit there and you eat a bunch of food, you don't exercise, and you're not getting fat. How are you doing it?" "I don't know." And he said, "Well, I never see you eat any, you
I
only eat
don't
meat."
know.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. "Do you eat lean meat?" "No, I eat the cheapest, fattiest meat that I could get." And he figured it out. He says, "You know what? I'm going to try to eat like you and see what happens." And he did that. He started eating meat and he started losing the body fat went away like nothing and he didn't lose any muscle. So he was
Yeah.
working out. And he says he's just as strong and losing all this fat. So he started on the carnivore diet. That was in 1999, somewhere around there.
Nice.
He's been on a carnivore diet since then.
Oh, wow. That's
Another
great.
friend of mine that is in his 70s, about 3 years ago, he decided that he was going to try to eat like me. And he actually became a very good fan of Ken Berry. He was seeing Ken
Okay.
Berry and a couple other videos.
Yeah.
Because, he asked me, is there any YouTube videos I can watch? I said, well, look for carnivore. He started doing that. And there's one other person that she's kind of sort of on the keto diet, but that's
Yeah.
about it.
Oh,
I think
okay.
everybody else looks at me like I'm some kind of kook.
And yet you're super healthy.
Well, I don't know if I'm healthy. I haven't been to a doctor for so long, but I feel good.
Yeah, I think
I'm going to
that's
be 55 in less than
great.
4 weeks.
Oh,
So
wow. Happy
I
birthday.
feel fine.
Yeah,
I may not look good, but I feel good.
you look fine. You look different than other 55-year-olds I've
Well,
seen.
that's true. I have a bunch of hair. I have
Yeah,
no gray hair.
that's amazing. Yeah, you full
I
head
don't
of hair.
color it either.
Oh, that's good. And
No,
it's not
I don't
big.
even have gray hair here. I got a couple, but hardly any,
Yeah,
you know.
no, I mean, I think that's the best indicator. How do you feel? How do you feel at 55?
I feel like when I was 25,
That's great.
and I can do the same amount of work I could do back then.
That's awesome. That's
A
awesome.
lot of people I know, they have back trouble. They have, joint problems. I don't have any of that. I have never had back pain in my entire life.
That is incredible. That is incredible.
I mean, I can sit like sideways and I squat down all the time when I'm working. And people
Sure.
look at me and, how in the world can you do that? Doesn't your back bother you? I said, no, not really.
It's a good indication, like good evidence of just eating meat.
I never thought about it really until recently.
Okay,
It's like one of those things, you go through life, you don't really think about it. But
right.
then as time goes on, you'd see other people, like some people that I knew when I was younger, and they were in excellent shape. In
Yeah.
fact, this one guy, I hadn't seen him in 30 years. The
Okay.
last time I saw him, he was, well, like a lot of the friends I had, they would go to the gym, they had the big muscles, and they looked good, and all the women were chasing after them, whatever. And I saw
Yeah.
him now, it was like, he says, "Hi, Rick." I'm thinking, who the heck is that? He's talking and talking. I'm thinking, okay, who is this? And it's just like, you know, and then I just can't figure it out. Finally, I figured out who it was. Oh, like, oh, okay. And
Yeah,
then I asked him, I said, how did you know it was me? Well, I know where you live and I know what you look like, and you don't look much different. I said, okay, well, that makes sense. But
sure.
I don't want to tell him. I said, he's got a gut like sticking out that far. But he's already had 2 kids. I think now he's having grandkids.
Oh, wow.
But when he was younger, he was very much into fitness. But I guess when people get older, it's just, you know,
We people don't know how to eat.
could be.
I think that's what happens.
But
Because
it seems to be a common thing.
not to say that you're older, but you didn't get older and you don't have this belly that's out to here, you know what I mean?
And the thing is, I can still wear the same clothes that I wore when I was in college.
Oh, wow.
Nothing has changed.
Oh,
I
wow.
found some stuff I had in storage in my old room, and I put it on, and the shirt and the pants still fit. So I don't know. I guess that must be a good thing, because it doesn't seem to be common in this world anymore.
Totally not common, and amazing that you have clothes from college in storage.
I mean, I have clothes going back to junior high, but obviously that won't fit because I was so
Sure,
small. I hold
sure.
that up to me now. It's like, wow, that was tiny. I can see why I was so frustrated back then.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. So what was it like being like the shortest kid and then being the shortest kid in junior high? And I think you said in an interview, like the tallest kid at the end of high school.
I
What
was
was
the
that like for
second
you?
tallest in high school. There was one other kid, but he was always tall. I mean,
Okay.
he was a giant even in junior high. But yeah, I was the second tallest in high school. And but the thing is that everything was different. I
Yeah.
hated school since the
Okay.
day that my parents dropped me off at kindergarten. I
Sure.
hated school.
Yeah.
It was a horrible experience.
Okay.
I was
Yeah,
always
I
used to being
understand.
with my parents. I was used
Sure.
to, whatever I did. And then in school, you're kind of stuck there. It's like being in prison. You can't do this, you can't do that. It's just not a pleasant experience. But by the
Yeah.
time that I got to junior high, I guess I was used to being the one that was always kind of nobody picked me for any team, always left behind, felt terrible. But when I got to high school, my outlook just changed. And I don't know if it
Okay.
was a diet or what it was, but
Okay.
I got to the point where I thought, you know what? I don't care if anybody wants to talk to me. I'm just going to go
Sure.
here, do my thing, go home, and that's it. And then as time went on, I started to get bigger and bigger. And then nobody was looking down on me anymore. Before I knew it, I was looking down on them.
Sure.
And it just happened. It wasn't like all of a sudden, it was like a gradual thing.
Okay.
Pretty soon I noticed I was the same height as my parents, then I was taller than them, then, in school. And then the other thing is too, my grades were terrible in elementary school and junior high. I think I had
Okay.
a C average. But when I
Okay.
got to high school, I went from a C average to a straight A average.
Oh, wow.
I
Oh,
have
wow.
no idea what that had to do with it. I don't know what it was. I told everyone it's because I wasn't being picked on anymore. But at this
Okay.
point, I think it may have something to do with the diet.
Maybe. Maybe.
When you're eating that much meat and fat, I think it's good for your brain.
I think so. I believe so, actually. I mean, from what I've heard from other YouTubers and doctors, sure, that makes sense.
When I was younger, I used to have temper tantrums and I would get afraid to try anything because it just seemed like I was always thinking of the worst. But by
Okay.
the time that I was in 12th grade, I had no problem. And when I started working, a lot of times people would say, "Oh, can you do this? Can you do that?" I said, "Well, I can learn." And nothing bad ever happened.
Right.
So it's like when the first time my car broke down, my transmission went out, and they wanted $600 to fix it, and I paid $100 for the car. So I thought, I'm going to take this apart and see what I can do, and that's what I
Nice.
did,
Oh,
and I
wow.
fixed it. Eventually I did the engine.
Sure.
I got to the point where I thought, if somebody else can do it, I can do it.
Sure.
And
Absolutely.
that was a totally different attitude because before that I was kind of helpless. If something went
Oh,
wrong,
wow.
I'd ask my dad to help me out, but by that time I could do it all myself. Then what happened was my parents were asking me when something broke, they asked me to fix it.
Oh, nice.
So
That's
it
awesome.
just it's like a whole attitude change. And it was around 1983. Around that time, I started to change. And then the other thing is I became more rebellious.
Okay.
Instead of like in the 80s, everybody had that hairstyle and clothing and whatever. I
Yeah.
went to the style I have now with the greased down hair and 1950s style. And I
Yeah.
went to school like that, and people laughed at me, and I thought it was funny. I thought, this is great.
Yeah.
And as time went on, they just didn't laugh anymore.
Nice. Well, that's great. So, let's talk about iguanas again for a second. So, I'm so curious because I've never eaten an iguana. I might now. I might now that I'm eating meat. I want to try it. But what does it taste like? If it tastes like anything, what's it similar to?
Iguana's delicious. The thing is that the taste of the iguana depends on where you get it from.
Okay.
If you get the iguana from an inland area with a lot of fruit, it's going to taste more like chicken. If you get
Okay.
it from the side of the canal, it's going to taste more like fish.
Oh, okay. That's very interesting because it depends on what they're eating. Oh, wow.
Depends on what they're eating. It also depends on how you cook it. Now,
Okay.
iguana can be tough, but the best way when you eat iguana for the first time, you're better off boiling it because
Okay.
it's easier to strip the skin off. You can
After you
fry it.
boil it, after you boil it, you take the skin off. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you can boil it. And then what you do, you can see in my video that I made, you
Okay.
cut it in
Let me check it
pieces, you
out.
boil it in water, and then you score it with a knife, and then you try to peel it back. And if it doesn't peel, put it back in the water, let it boil some more, and then the skin will peel right off. And then you can
Okay.
either eat the iguana like that, or you can take it out and dry it off and batter it with pork rinds and eggs and fry it. Or
Oh,
you
yeah.
could just make a stew out of it. And if you're from the islands, they usually make a curry. But
Oh,
as
wow.
a carnivore, you probably wouldn't use curry powder.
No,
But
not so
they do
much.
that. They like curried iguana.
Nice. Oh, wow. So interesting. Growing up, I had it was not 6 foot iguana, like a tail, the head, it was as tall as I was. So it was like 5'3", maybe 5 feet at that time. But
Well, that's like some
they
people
get rid
here
of
eat
it.
gator tail.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. There's interesting foods that I'm now willing to try.
Well, you won't be disappointed. If you can get a
Okay.
hold of iguana and it's cooked properly, I think you're going to enjoy it. It's a
Okay.
delicious meat. And the thing is that if you cook it in butter, it tastes almost like lobster,
Oh,
especially
wow.
if you cook the legs. It depends
Yeah.
on the iguana. If you can get a relatively young one, not too old, that
Yeah.
was eating a good diet, they taste really good. But the worst thing you can get is a fishy iguana, and that's not so bad. I mean,
That's not so
if
bad.
if you don't mind seafood, I actually like the taste of it.
Okay.
I ate a lot of seafood in my time, especially when I lived in Key Largo. I ate a lot of seafood,
Oh,
a lot of
sure.
shrimp. Oh, I love seafood. I don't
Yeah.
have much of it now because it's too expensive and I'm not
Oh
near the
man.
ocean, but I
Okay, I
do love
understand.
seafood.
Nice. And shoot, I always have I have a question and then it slips my mind. But so I'm sorry, I'll have to edit this part out.
Fine.
um, how if you wanted to give advice to people to start this, what would you recommend? Start eating carnivore. What would you recommend? How would you go about doing it?
It depends on what they're eating now.
Okay,
If you're eating a standard American diet, the best thing that I would think you could do is to
sure,
try to increase your meat consumption and decrease the other stuff. I would get rid of the bread first. If you
sure.
can get rid of bread, that's the start.
Okay,
Vegetables, you know what? Why not? If you want to eat some cooked vegetables, start cooking the vegetables with meat. And that's what I
okay,
gave my friends advice. Like if you want to eat something like broccoli or cauliflower, cook it
yeah,
with ground meat. It tastes really good and it won't
okay,
bother you as much.
okay,
Try to avoid the raw vegetables because those are not good. And
okay,
fruit, fruit I think is a personal taste. If you're one of those people that doesn't have a problem, maybe you're not trying to lose weight or maybe you don't have any food allergies and you could add fruit to it,
okay,
but definitely get rid of the processed foods, get rid of the chips, the bread. And what I would do if it was me, anything that has wheat or corn in it, that's the first thing I would get rid of.
okay,
Anything with wheat or corn.
okay,
And then I don't like to eat roots, so I'd get rid of the potatoes, but some people do well with potatoes, so, but try to switch to more meat. Get rid of the processed foods first and then taper off on the vegetables and then taper off on the fruits and
okay.
then add back what you feel comfortable with.
Nice, great. And because you know about plants, why would you say raw is not so good?
Well, the problem is that plants in general, they try to defend themselves and they have all kinds
Okay,
of compounds that are designed to discourage them being eaten. Anything from making the plants taste bad to, actually injuring or even killing living things. Some plants will produce
mm,
poisons that kill
mhm.
insects. But the other problem is any plant that has chlorophyll, which is the green part of the leaf, you're going to have calcium oxalate, which is very important for the plant. That's one. See, plants need calcium. And if you're a farmer, you know that if your fields become acidified, you're going to have to put lime on it. So they need calcium.
Okay,
And one of the byproducts is that you get oxalic acid and then you get those calcium crystals. And that seems to cause problems for a lot of people. So why would you eat raw vegetables when they contain those calcium oxalate crystals? Maybe
sure,
you can deal with it, but to me, it seems dangerous. So you have plant
sure.
defense chemicals, then you have the plant structure itself, which is not good for anyone to eat.
Yeah,
Why would you eat that? If you're going to eat plant material, eat the part of the plant that the plant was designed to be eaten. For example, the fruit. Because
okay,
if you eat fruit, that's mostly just, sugars of some kind,
right,
maybe some minerals. If you're going to eat an orange or banana or whatever, yeah, I mean, it's not, I mean, all that sugar, if you're an active person, it's probably
sure,
okay. There's a
right.
lot of native people that eat fruit along with their meat.
Yeah,
So that's what I would do. I would avoid the leaves and anything
okay.
that, stems because those are the parts of the plant that it doesn't want you to eat.
Okay, makes sense. From what I've experienced personally, makes sense.
Well, it's like for example, I grow bananas, and you'll
Okay,
notice that bananas are almost never eaten by insects. And the
okay.
reason is they have defense chemicals in the leaves and the outer stems. And on the fruit
Mhm.
itself, they produce a sap that's sticky. So if something tries to eat it, that sap is like a glue. If you
Oh,
get that on
wow.
your clothes, it'll stain your clothes. It's even slightly acidic. But
Okay.
when the fruit ripens, then you see birds and other animals eating the fruit. So the plant
Okay.
protects it all the way up to the point where it wants it to be eaten, and then it's ready to go.
Oh, wow.
That seems to be the way plants work.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Okay, cool. Well, I think that's all I got right now, but maybe I'll have more questions later.
Well, that's good. Make a list. If you decide, to have another interview, I've had several interviews, but I've only had like a couple that were repeats.
Oh,
So
okay.
I guess everyone gets busy. I don't know. But I was interviewed twice. Yeah, I don't know if I'm sure you've seen Joey, the carnivore kid, carnivore camaraderie.
Oh, no, I haven't. I have to check that one out.
I think that was the most popular video that I was in. A lot of people watched that. And then of
Oh,
course,
okay.
Dr. Shafee was the only doctor that actually interviewed me, and that was
Oh,
pretty
okay.
popular too.
Yeah,
Which
that's the
was
one
where
that I saw, was the
that's
one
the
with
one that you
Dr.
saw. But there's
Shafee. Yeah.
others. There's probably another 10 or 15 videos out there by
Nice.
different YouTubers.
Oh, awesome. I mean, I think that more of us talking about it and trying to spread the word, we're going to reach more and more people and maybe help some of those people to be able to like learn how to eat a little bit healthier.
Well, that's the reason I originally agreed to be interviewed, because
Okay.
I have been trying to talk to people for years and they just look at me like I'm an idiot. This
Oh,
guy's
wow.
nuts.
Yeah.
This he's trying to kill himself by eating all this bad food. And then that they got that guy in Las Vegas that came up with the heart attack grill restaurant. So that's kind of the same idea. Eat the most unhealthy food possible and die of a heart attack. So I think that people equate me with that as some nutcase that chases ducks and eats duck eggs and eats meat all the time, is just
Yeah.
wacky, has some crazy ideas, and say, oh, it's just a kook. But I figured
Sure.
that if I did a few interviews and I got to meet people, it's actually
Yeah.
surprising to me how many people that I see on YouTube that have used the diet as a way of trying to improve their health. I didn't even think that was possible. I thought the
Sure.
diet was designed to kill you, not make you happier, healthier.
True, because that's what people are telling you. But yeah, exactly. I heard a lot about it and started doing it myself.
That's
So
good.
totally, totally.
Well, hopefully you'll continue with it. And that's the one thing. I know a lot of people that have gone on diets, and they'll go on a diet, they'll lose weight, and what happens? They go right back to the same crappy lifestyle and gain the weight
Sure.
back and more.
Sure. Yeah,
But I'm hoping
exactly.
that the carnivores, at least if you don't stay carnivore, at least stay semi-carnivore, and don't
Sure.
ever go back to eating duck food and becoming fat, waddling around and pooping every 15 minutes.
Don't become a duck.
Don't become a duck. That's it.
Yeah.
Unless you have wings to fly, don't become a duck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, with my experience so far, no turning back. No turning back. There's no reason to.
Good. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's the unique thing. If you've had chronic health conditions or a lot of extra weight, I think
Yeah.
once you experience the benefits of losing the weight and feeling better, I can't imagine anyone being crazy enough to go back to the old way of eating.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It
And
just seems like a recipe for disaster and needless suffering.
sure, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I ate something off a couple days ago and it was salad, and then like an hour later, I was back to farting. So there you go.
Really? All it took was a salad?
It was a couple bites of salad. It had some like mayonnaise dressing on it. So I
Oh,
think
the seed oils. That's the
yeah,
worst part.
yeah. So
Oh,
there you go. That I think like when you're doing this type of eating and then you experience like feeling better and then you go back, uh, it'll instantly signal your body will signal and you'll know it's that because you've eliminated almost everything else. So
that's it.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I see people eating duck food. I go, "Oh, how can you eat that nasty stuff?" A lot of people that I work with, they buy snacks. And that's the other thing, when of course, I don't really go to a gas station because I make my
Oh,
own
right.
fuel,
Yeah.
but
Oh, wow.
they stop at the gas station and they're not just putting gas, they go inside and they buy the duck food. I go,
Yeah.
what are you buying this duck food for? Oh, it's a snack. You want it? No, I don't eat duck food. If I'm going to have a snack, because when I have a snack, what I do, I have a piece of meat that's frozen and I'll put it on the engine. And when I'm
Okay.
driving, it'll heat up. And then when it smells good, I'll stop and I'll have something to eat. I've had friends ride with me and they laugh. Like, what are you doing? I said, I'm putting some meat on the engine. On the engine? You got to be kidding me. And I'll put a piece of beef on there right on top. I got a container I put on the exhaust manifold. I drive for like half an hour and you can start smelling the food. It's like, that's good, And even though I have the air conditioning on, the air vents right over the hood so that the smell goes in. So when I'm driving, it's like I'm getting hungrier and
Oh,
hungrier.
nice.
And I stop and I open the hood and you can hear the meat sizzling. And I get really excited. I'm like, you're going to eat meat that's been cooking on an engine? Yeah, why not? Think I'm nuts.
That's
But they go to the
amazing.
gas station and they buy duck food. It's like, how can
Yeah,
you eat nasty stuff?
sure.
And
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
you go to the fast food restaurant, they'll go to the Burger King or the McDiarrhea, and that smell is terrible. Oh, the worst one is this stupid place called Chick-fil-A. It's
Oh,
right
yeah.
over there on Kendall, and you
Okay.
drive by there and there's a line of cars going all the way around the drive-through.
I
I'm thinking,
understand. I used to love Chick-fil-A.
oh, you did?
Yeah, I did.
How can anybody enjoy that
I don't
stuff?
know because your taste buds are all screwed up because you're eating duck food your whole life.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so
'Cause I had somebody dare me to eat a Chick-fil-A sandwich.
yeah.
So I said, okay, I'm not going to eat the bread. Let me eat the chicken part. And I took a bite
Okay.
out of it and I went, this is terrible. So what I did,
Yeah.
I peeled off, there's like a shell of bread on top of the chicken. I peeled it off and I ate the chicken. I go, well, the chicken isn't bad. The chicken's okay, but the rest of this is garbage. Oh,
Right.
that's the best part. You need the sauce. Everything's a sauce. You know,
Sure.
a friend of mine goes to an Arby's and he's got all these sauces. I'm thinking, it's a roast beef sandwich. You eat the roast beef. They get horse sauce, or I don't know what this
Mhm.
other Arby's sauce,
Oh yeah,
putting it all this stuff. And you look at the ingredients, it's this soybean oil,
it's terrible.
corn syrup. Like, why are you eating this?
Right.
You know,
Right.
I don't know. I'd rather just go to Shorty's barbecue and get a piece of meat. But even
Right.
there, they try to pour this ridiculous steak sauce on there.
Yeah, exactly. You don't need any of that stuff. That's what I've
I,
learned. You don't need any of that.
I've gone to a friend's house for a barbecue and they have the steak sauce. I said, if you put that on my steak, I want to know where the garden hose is. They're like, what for? Because I'm going to rinse it off before I eat it. Oh,
Sure.
I got this great rub with sauce. Like, no, 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 no. If you're
Yeah,
going to make me a steak, I'll tell you what, I'd rather eat the steak raw than have you put that garbage on it.
sure.
And I've done that
Sure.
before. I've eaten a chunk of raw meat just to show them that, I'm not going to eat this crap. I
Sure.
don't
And how did you
understand
feel afterwards? Were you fine? Totally
what,
fine with the
what's
raw
that?
meat? With the raw meat, you were
Oh yeah,
totally
the raw
fine?
meat's okay. I mean, it's not ideal, but as long as I don't get sick, and I've never gotten sick. I've
That was
eaten
the
raw meat
question. Yeah.
only as a dare,
Oh,
just
okay.
to gross people out. I used to do that a lot because I like raw liver. I
Oh,
used to
wow.
watch the TV show The Dukes of Hazzard. I saw Boss Hogg eating raw liver, so I thought, oh, I'll try that, and I actually enjoyed it a lot more than the cooked stuff.
Oh,
So I
wow.
do it as a way to disgust people, and even
Sure.
today, a lot of times I'll eat a large amount of meat just to show someone it's possible. Because when they see me and how skinny I am, oh, this guy
Yeah.
can't eat any meat. And I'll knock out 2 or 3 pounds of steak, no problem. So,
Nice.
oh, you
Oh,
got
wow.
some more? And they're like, wow.
Where did you
And
put it?
yeah, where'd you put it? Oh, he's got a hollow leg.
Yeah,
Always
exactly.
an excuse. But no, I love steak. And if the steak is really good, I can eat 4 pounds of steak in one sitting.
Nice.
I
Oh,
love to eat meat.
yeah. You for sure, else you wouldn't have been doing it for 40 years, minus the little
Almost
break.
40 years.
Almost
That
40 years.
vegetarian phase.
Yeah, yeah. Ugh. Sorry about that.
That's why I feel it was terrible. Even
Oh,
now, I can still remember the disgusting taste. When you ate all those juices. Oh, they were terrible. My dad
oh, yeah.
drink it, and it was every time I heard that juicer going. "Rrr," I said, "What are you doing? Making compost?" It was awful. And then everything was in a blender. I remember he'd put vegetables and ice and fruits and everything in there and grind. "Rrr, rrr, rrr."
Yeah,
And I'd look at that. I go, ugh. I don't want to drink this garbage. I
sure.
really only drink water.
Oh, okay. Oh,
And
so do you drink coffee or you just drink water now? You just
I
drink water.
hate coffee and I don't
Oh,
like
okay.
tea either.
Oh,
Now, I
okay.
used to take tea when I had stomach problems as a kid. My
Yeah.
mother would give me chamomile tea,
Okay.
so I would take that. But since I don't think I've had a tea. I think the last time I had a tea is when we went to the Chinese restaurant like 15 years ago. I'm trying to remember. I think I took a sip of it and I said, "What is this? Chinese laundry water?" I mean, I don't like any of that. And a lot of
Sure.
people I know love coffee. They love their coffee. They'll
Yeah,
go
me, I'm one of those people.
and they like coffees that have other stuff in it,
Oh,
like
I
all
just
kinds
like
of.
black. I just
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, I've gotten really used to black coffee, so at least it's a little bit better. I try not to put other stuff in it.
Well, you know
Sometimes
how it
it's
is.
in there,
Like here
but
in the Latin Americas, Miami's basically Cuba. They have a
sure.
cafecito, the little cups, and
Yes,
they pour
yes, I
that
know
in there and
those.
they drink that black coffee. Oh, they love that.
Yeah.
That's a tradition here.
Oh, wow, yeah. I'll have to. So you're in Miami.
I'm in Miami.
Okay, well, I'll have to come to Miami and have a cafecito.
Cafecito. They all have these little aluminum pots. I forget what they call that thing. I think it's an Italian invention, and they put the
Okay.
coffee in there and they heat it
Yeah,
up and it percolates. I can't remember what that thing is called.
nice.
I think I
I
even
don't
have
know.
one around here.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I finally remembered my question because it's in relationship to iguanas and ducks. So when you eat these, do you eat everything? I mean, maybe not the beak, but do you try? what do you do? Do you eat the inside, like the what is it called? The internal organs, the brain? Do you eat everything, or what do you?
Generally, I'll cut off the legs and the tail. Only
Okay.
if it's a really large iguana will I eat some of the internal parts. I'll throw away the intestines, but sometimes there's actually a small liver in there that tastes like a
Okay.
chicken liver, and
Oh,
I'll eat
okay.
that. And let's see what else. The body of the iguana doesn't have a lot of meat in it, but on the
Okay.
bigger ones there's rib meat, which is
Oh, okay.
actually quite flavorful. And what I'll do, I'll cut that off and I'll cook that in butter.
Oh, okay.
But
That's
most of the
interesting.
small ones, you just cut the tail and the legs off, and then I throw the rest of it away.
Oh, okay.
I bury it. Whatever I don't eat, I bury in the
Oh,
garden
okay.
to act as compost.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Don't waste it. Don't waste.
And that's the one thing about this diet. My garbage can is almost always empty.
Oh,
There's
wow.
nothing to throw away. I mean, some of these
Sure.
places, there's so many packages. And when I have to deal, like I go by somebody else's kitchen, they have this filthy garbage can that
Right.
has stinky garbage in it in a plastic bag, fermenting in there. It's a terrible smell. In my
Sure.
kitchen, the only thing you'll find is a few meat wrappers. And
Okay.
usually I just take whatever, like when I buy, like for example, when I go, oh, and I had a sale paper, they actually have a sale on beef. I think it's $2.88 a pound. I'll buy the whole piece and then I'll cut it into steaks. And the
Yeah.
plastic that it's in, I just throw it outside, let it dry, and then I put it in the garbage can.
Oh, okay.
So my
But
garbage can is usually empty. But
it's very
when you're a
interesting.
vegetarian, you have a lot of food that goes bad, that's
Right.
rotten, and you have to get rid of it, and you have to constantly go to the store to buy. I can go to the store once a week, and I got everything I need.
Nice.
And if I do eat any plant material, it comes from my own yard.
Oh,
So there's
okay.
no waste there. So whatever I
Sure.
don't eat goes to the ducks
Right. Or the compost.
or the compost. And
Nice.
I'm the king of compost. My yard has gone up probably 12 inches since I've lived in my house.
Oh, wow.
Because
Nice.
I do a lot of cleanups. I bring
Sure.
home a lot of the plant material. All my trees I cut and I mulch. I have a wood chipper, 74 horsepower wood chipper that originally belonged to, I don't remember, utility or whatever it was. And I use a lawnmower for all the small stuff.
Yeah.
Everything
Okay.
is composted.
Oh, that's great. That's great. It's just another point of someone who's been a carnivore forever and how you've lived your life and how you work with your environment also.
Well, that's true. And if you think about it, a lot of the people that I know that have been vegetarian, they're very much into climate change.
Yeah.
And this one person that I know, she was trying to get me to get rid of my old cars, especially my
Yeah.
truck, because it's a diesel. And she says that my truck is destroying the planet because I'm warming the earth. But I tried to explain to her, I don't buy any diesel. The only fuel I use is either recycled plastic or use vegetable oil. So
Okay.
all the fuel that I'm using is something that was otherwise waste.
Okay.
And then on top of that, I don't drive as much because I don't work at a regular job. I do these side jobs. So a
Okay.
lot of times it's close by. I'll go there, do what I have to. I do some work at home. So really energy wise, I use less than anybody. I use very little electricity. I hardly use any kilowatts because everything I have is efficient. And I have a very simple lifestyle. So really when it comes down to it, I think my environmental impact is less than most of the vegans and vegetarians that I know.
It's
And I
very
fixed everything, so I don't buy anything new.
sure.
Everything I have is either somebody threw it out or I bought it cheap.
Nice.
So it's all part of the lifestyle.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a pretty sustainable lifestyle. And if I
Sure.
ever get to the point where I can live in a rural area, I'll be able to raise my own animals, or at the
Absolutely.
very least, I'll be able to trade or purchase the animal and
Sure.
process it myself. And
Right.
that'll eliminate a lot of the transportation, because right now I'm buying meat from the store. But if
Yeah.
I got my own cattle and I process it at home, there's no transportation. There's no waste because whatever I don't eat and the ducks don't eat is going to go into the compost pile. Plus,
Right.
I got all the fat. I make my own soap. There's just so many
Oh,
things that you
wow.
can use. The bones that I use, they're ground up and put into the ground. That's potassium and calcium that goes back to the plants.
Right.
Plants produce food that animals can eat, and it just goes around and around.
Yeah.
When
It-
my garden didn't have ducks in it, it wasn't half as productive as it is now.
oh, wow. Makes sense. Makes
The
sense.
ducks make all the difference in the world.
Oh, wow. That's
Less insects and better fertility.
oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
Yep. Without the ducks, the insects are a problem. The
Oh, sure.
grasshoppers were eating everything. They took over the whole yard.
Oh, wow.
With the ducks, I haven't seen a grasshopper in years.
Oh, okay. I love your little ecosystem in your neighborhood, in your
Yeah.
house. How
Plus,
you
it's
spend
entertaining. The first thing I do when I get up in the morning, I walk outside. I get up at 7 a.m. I go outside and I go and feed the ducks. I rake leaves, sweep up, do a little of this. I cut a few branches and, if I got a banana leaf that's bent over or dying, I'll cut that off, throw it on the ground. And then once a week, I take the lawnmower and shred it all up. I got rid of my lawn years ago. I got
it? Okay.
tired of it. It just seemed
Yeah,
like a waste of space. Why are you going to spend all this time watering a little strip of grass that isn't even big enough to do anything with? It's not like you're going to play football on it. It's just this tiny little thing. So I thought, why would I waste that space with a lawn when I could just put
sure.
some banana plants or flowers or whatever and
Yeah.
put a little pond for the ducks and have a mini garden.
Yeah, exactly. Cool.
Otherwise, I'm just looking at across 20 feet of lawn to a street with people going by. I mean, what's the point? I don't see the advantage.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, Rick, I guess it's my final question. Anything else you want to say?
Well, I don't know. That's a good question. What I do want to say is I've just been very happy that I've been able to meet so many different people from so many different backgrounds that I would never meet in person thanks
Right.
to the internet.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I have to be kind of grateful that we had the whole COVID-19 disaster because that made me sit here at the computer. And this is kind of what got me interested in this in the first place.
Oh,
It
wow.
was purely by accident. I had
Okay.
no idea that a carnivore community even existed.
Yeah.
But
That makes
I don't
sense.
know. I was online. I was looking something up, and then a video popped up, and I think it was from that fruity doctor, about carnivore MD. And I looked at it. I go,
The
that's kind
fruity
of the
doctor,
way.
is that Dr. Paul
It's
Saladino?
Saldino. That's the one.
Fruity doctor.
But yeah, at that time, I don't know if he was eating fruit or not, but this guy without a shirt going around saying he eats only meat. And I thought, well, I do the same thing. So
Maybe you should
what's
take
the
your
big
shirt
deal?
off.
Well, you don't want to see that unless you're into skeletons. But I'll tell you one thing, when I started to explore and I saw there's Sean Baker and then
Mhm.
there's Anthony, and there's a lot of them that came up and
Yeah.
I started looking, I go, you know, I've been doing this for a long time. I didn't even know it was a thing. I thought
Yeah.
it was something I invented just out of my own rebelliousness. And then I
Sure.
started seeing people that had health issues. Oh, I got better, and then I saw somebody else that said that he had heart disease and he got better with a carnivore diet. And I thought that doesn't make any sense. How can you
Right.
get better on a heart attack diet? And then by 2021, I was kind of addicted to watching all these videos.
Oh,
And then
wow.
in 2022, that's when Joey asked me to be interviewed. And then after that, it's just been a constant thing, one after the other.
Oh, nice.
But it's hard to believe that all these years I've been eating this way and I had no idea that this was something that was happening I wasn't even aware of.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. So how did he find you? If you're not, so yeah, how did he find you?
Um, well, I commented on some of the videos. That's what I was doing. I started
Okay.
to comment. I commented on Fruity Boy's videos. Of course, I never got a response. I commented on Sean Baker's videos. I never got a response. But then
Sure.
I guess when I hit Joey's video, then he said, "Oh, you've been, carnivore that long. You want to be interviewed?" And I thought, why am I going to bother? But then I thought
Yeah.
about it again. I thought, why not? Who cares? And
Nice.
then after
Nice.
that, once that video came out, then people started contacting me. I got contacted by Scott and Barkay and just a bunch of different, Anthony and Rena and all these people. They started contacting me, and then it was okay. So I started doing one interview after the other,
Nice.
and it hasn't even been a year. I mean, it was probably last August or September that I did my first interview, and it hasn't even been a year, and I've done several of them.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
So
thank you. Thanks for talking to me.
it's my
This is a
pleasure.
lot of
Like
fun.
I
We had a
said, I
lot of
like to
fun.
get the word out there. If
Yeah.
anyone is in any doubt that you can do this long term,
Oh,
all they
yeah.
have to do is look at me and
Yeah,
see that
exactly.
it's not impossible.
You haven't died yet.
I haven't died yet. My heart, I could give out at any time. This could be the big one. I could not wake up tomorrow, but I'll tell you one thing, I feel so good. Even if it kills me before my time, I think it's worth it.
Nice. I understand. I have a prediction. You're going to be over 100 years old. That's my prediction.
I
If you
I
want.
don't want to think about being over 100, but hey, if I feel this good, I guess it can't be that bad.
Can't be that bad. It's a good life. Okay, cool. Thank you so much
All right.
for this. We'll do it again. I'm sure we will.
Sounds good to me.